We're just now getting ready to start. So welcome to the call, and let's get it underway. Here we go. Welcome to the Power Up Your Lunch webinar series, The Behaviors of Business and the Data Behind Them, with Lynn Karazi, the Data Magician. I'm your host, Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. Now, this is a lunch break call, which means we're going to get you back onto your normal day within an hour. But when you get back to it, you're going to have a few new things that you'll know, and you'll have some tools to help you improve your business. Now, we've done a couple of these in the series so far, but we asked for feedback along the way. And the feedback that we got was, this is great information. I want to hear more questions, and I want to have it be conversational, and I want to learn more, not necessarily have a straight PowerPoint presentation. So today, get ready to get involved as you learn the truth about sales. The way you do that, we encourage you to ask questions in the chat, and we will work them into the conversation as we get through it. But first, let's introduce the star of the show. It's Lynn Karazi, the Data Magician. He's the owner of Data to Profit. Data to Profit helps companies just like yours transform their messy data into information and insight that you never thought possible. It's kind of like magic. Lynn will show you new things about your business and help you make more money, which is what we all want to do. Lynn, Data Magician, good morning, sir. How are you?
I am doing really well today, thanks. I'm excited about what we had to offer folks today. Look forward to having everybody come in and join us. And again, as Pat said, the participation is really what's going to make this good learning environment. And yes, and we have taken a number of slides out. I mean, I think some of the feedback I got last time was a lot of good information, almost overwhelming. So we're trying to keep it conversational, keep it fun, keep it lighter. So join in. I think we've taken a different approach. It should be good.
And in the webinar today, we're kind of going over some major concepts, and you'll see this during the webinar. Lynn has some overall theories about how data and your business decisions are intertwined, and he's going to show you how to use data to make better decisions. That's the essence of the webinar series. But today, we're specifically focusing on sales. So when we look at a business, almost any business, where does sales fit in the priorities for a business?
You know, businesses have so many different priorities. They're trying to manage people, a new work from home type of business model. There's lots of concerns about cash and purchasing and operations and delivery. And sales is definitely in the mix. But when you think about all the things that a business does, its workforce, salespeople maybe represent 10 to 15%, if that. And lots of other times things come up and business don't seem to be able to prioritize. But at the end of the day, when you think about you and me, we're worried about COVID, but according to Mr. Maslow, our primary concern is safety and security. We're seeing that today. You take that same type of hierarchy of needs for a business, sales is definitely at the bottom. So whether it's stated or whether it's always obvious, sales should be the priority because that gives you the right and the ability to do anything else that the business wants to do.
And when you say sales are at the bottom because it's Maslow's pyramid, that means it's at the primary function of the business, right? I just want to make sure I understand that correctly.
Yes. It is the foundation on which everything else happens.
Okay. So if sales are so important, how come it isn't the sole focus of everything we do as a business owner?
Well, every business says that sales is the priority. It's the top line of your P&L. We talked before about strategic planning, and strategic planning always, how are we going to grow in our sales? But when you think about it, and even in this day when information is so important and the largest companies are growing based on using their data, where does the IT spend go? It's on accounting, it's production, it's ordering, it's distribution, and sales reporting. And amazingly, a small percent of it actually goes to customers and sales understanding and figuring out how do we get better about reaching those customers. Google and Amazon are obviously the two big ones that have mastered that. But for most small to medium-sized businesses, it's not there yet. So yes, it's a priority, but it's not one we're actively thinking about.
But there's something funny that happens with sales. I think a lot of business owners are inherently suspicious about their sales team. How come we're doing a webinar about the truth about sales and not the truth on HR or the truth on engineering or something like that?
Love the question. Don't worry, we will get to those other functions, but sales, it's always this thing where salespeople are out in the field. or any, and I worked for some big companies, some medium-sized companies, and it's like the headquarters versus the street reality. And there's always been that disconnect. So sales from the street doesn't always give the truth, if you will, because they're not typically really rooted in what is the actual things that they can measure, touch, and use it as an explanation. And that's why some of the approaches that I think we're talking about today is going to connect the field with the headquarters, connect the field with marketing, and make sure that functionally sales and marketing are more aligned.
And this odd relationship bordering on distrust in some ways, depending on, I think, how high up the organization you go. Um, is that a function of goal setting or expectations or how you guide your business? Does that raise those kinds of questions?
Yeah, absolutely. Last month we talked about planning and all that, and planning typically tends to be this small group exercise. And when when you start digging down into it, how do we plan? Well, it might be based on the percentage of growth. Our sales are going to be up 5% next year. And by taking that approach, or we'll say we're going to grow in the East, or we're going to grow this product line, but really what happens is it leaves every rep to go out and figure out what's right for their business, for their approach, their style, and the way that they look at their own success. And so, and at the end of the day, yes, you have this plan with some assumptions about what's going to happen, but yet the reward structure isn't actually in line with that. And we'll see some examples later on about how that could be different.
And it's also curious, I think, as an aside, as long as they bring their number home, we'll forgive a lot of behavior. But when we try and set and motivate and get that behavior to happen, sometimes it seems as though that's where some of that distrust comes from. So
Yeah,
when you're doing data to profit, right? You have a very bold promise. You promise to 2x our sales growth rate using Sales Magic. Now that's magic with a K. So what the heck is this Sales Magic and how do I get some of it?
Sales Magik is something that we identified in really looking at the way that information and planning and performance management and incentives all come together. And so when you think about Sales Magic, it really begins with the M stands for a market view. When I say a market view, that is that street reality, because at the end of the day, you can observe the behavior of your customers, you can observe the behavior of the sales reps. That turns into actions being taken, and actions being taken or how you achieve growth. Now the rest of it, once you come through that market view, there's only 4 ways that you can grow your business. It's adding different products into existing customers. If you're a business that has 10 different product lines or product categories, how many of your customers are actually buying 1, 2, 3, or all 10? Okay, if they're not buying all 10, is there a good reason? Or is it just because product lines 1, 2, and 3 are the easiest ones to sell, and there's not enough incentive to go sell the others? So adding more products into existing customers, the G, gain new customers. This is the goal, holy grail for every single business that's out there. We all want new customers, and that's where a good portion of our sales effort goes to. And that's a lot of times how we reward people. So we always have to be bringing in new customers. And then once they're in there, the I stands for increase the sales of what they're already buying. If they're buying 100 a month, why can't they be buying 110? Or if they're buying 150, what causes them not to be able to significantly increase that? And now it comes to the question of their behavior. Are you their second tier supplier or you're the first? If you're the first, what might you be able to do to, expand the sales? If you're the second tier supplier, how do you get in and take market share from somewhere else? Because at the end of the day, that's how you're going to measure it. Everything's going to come down to market share. And finally, the K, it stands for keep. This is where we took a little bit of data magic liberty to replace that C with a K, but keep is the customers you have. Let's face it, every business has a leaky bucket. Some customers go out of business, but a lot of them just vote with their feet and go somewhere else, looking for something different, looking for better services, and they don't often tell you why. But if you can somehow reduce that rate of attrition, you will get that sales growth, because the first new sales for each year are just going to fill up the bucket otherwise. So at the end of the day, Sales Magic contains this consistent operational view that's marketplace. It's how you look at the business, how you manage the business, how you reward the business. And so, and it really reflects what happens on the street or in your customer service department.
So we've got a lot of different types of businesses that are on the call, and we see the slide and it's helpful, and Magic, the acronym, get it. But I
Mhm.
think it would be helpful for people to try and get a real world example, or at least some kind of sample business that could illustrate what Sales Magic is and how it works to grow our sales.
Yeah. How about we open up Pat's Pizzeria?
Oh, heck yeah. I owe a guy a pizza, so this is perfect timing. So yes, okay, we had a pizza bet. I won't go into it. Yes, Pat's Pizzeria sounds awesome. Love it.
Okay. Remind me to tell you a story sometime when I convinced a dairy farmer why she ran a pizzeria. It's a great story, but there's so many things that come together in a pizzeria that it's really a microcosm for every other businesses out there. Because when you boil it down, we generally have the same type of operations, the same type of challenges, and everyone can relate to a pizzeria. And again, when you think about it, there are only 4 ways to grow. So let's talk about your pizzeria.
Here's the beer
Where is
cheese
it and
soup.
where's it going to go?
Go
I'm
ahead,
sorry.
Jen. Sorry about that. We had some sound leak in from one of our guests. Go ahead.
Yeah, there we go. No worries. So where is your pizzeria?
Well, I live in Tosa, so if I were going to open a restaurant, I'd probably want downtown Tosa.
Okay, it's small suburban downtowns, close to a couple big attractions, nearby neighborhoods, right?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Yeah. So when we talked about sales last month, do you remember the two things that really drove your sales?
We talked about our staff and we talked
Mhm.
about our customers, right? Is it customers and staff?
Customers and staff. So when you
Eh,
think about it,
yes.
if someone walks into your pizzeria, they are your customer, right? So they made some decision that got them there. So you did something to influence their behavior. Maybe they had a great experience before, or somebody else had a great experience and told you about it. But something in their behavior said, "We're going to go visit Pat." Once they sit down and walk through the front door, what do they see? What do they experience? And largely, that's going to be reflected in your waitstaff behavior. And actually, just kind of an aside, one of the things that business owners, pizzeria owners, I've been in and out of a lot of them, I've talked to a lot of them, they never walk through their own front door. They never actually see what their customer sees. But that's it. Customer behavior, waitstaff behavior, those two things are going to drive your sales.
Okay, so let's put Sales Magic into action. What are you looking for as you walk through the doors of my pizzeria?
Basically, we're going to start with, where are you at now? And the question is, and the thing that most business owners know, they know exactly where they are. Do they really know from a street view how they got there? And once we have an idea of where we got there, then we say, okay, where are we going to, what are we going to achieve to be able to do that? And finally, using the information that's available to us through a lot of analysis of the data that the company already has, we build the Sales Magic plan around database assumptions. And once you have those database assumptions, now as you start to go through the year, you actually know, what did I expect to happen versus what's actually happened, from more of a perspective of, I'm up 5%, but how did I think I was going to get the 5%? How am I really getting the 5%? That's where the Sales Magic comes in.
Okay, so we've shared a screen now that has some of these assumptions, or it's assumptions because it's make believe. But if this was a real business, this would be data. So walk us through the screen, because there's a lot on the screen right now.
Yeah. So what you really see, the current situation, your annual revenue, you're actually doing pretty well. You got $660,000 worth of revenue, doing that with a limited menu, a couple classic pizzas, a few Italian subs, and the world famous Pat cannolis that always are given away or
They're amazing.
reduced price during lunches. Okay. So, but the problem is, over time, we're noticing that our check averages are declining, and as a result, your profits are declining. And so then what we'd like to do is really then say, okay, what do we want to do from sales? If we want to grow at 10%, let's grow at 10%. And how do we do that? So when you look then at the source of sales analysis, we have an average of 350 guest parties per week. So that's, keeping, and we see more obviously on Friday and Saturday than we do Sundays and Mondays. Pizza represents 60% of our sales, and the rest of it is other foods. We have some appetizers and we know what our drink volume is. We know what our desserts is. So we have a pretty good idea about what we are selling. Now we can, and in the background, we've done a lot of work to try to figure out what's changing, what are the patterns behind all that. But at the end of the day, our average check is around $40. Or now it's like $38, was $40. So it's coming down. And the other thing that we've been able to do is capture some data in our CRM system about who our regulars are. So now we're bringing in other things besides pure sales data. We're knowing who those customers are and actually attaching names to them and putting them in the bucket. So we can say that 45% of all the parties, whether dine-in or delivery, are our regulars. And we define that by saying, are they coming in more than 2 or more times per month? And then there's some additional detail there just to show some graphics about how your data can be made more visible to you. You really see the sales volumes between dine-in and carry-out through the different days of the week and the average value per check. Value per check goes up on Saturdays or Fridays and Saturdays too.
So I want to ask a question before we get into seeing what Sales Magic is. So if you work with a business, this is the data magician stuff. You're going to look into what they do and see almost an X-ray vision through all of their different revenue lines, all of their expense lines, their trends. Like there is a way that you're pulling people's data and sorting it into a place that anyone can understand it. And then you do the analysis. But what we're seeing on the screen right now is it's not that I have $660,000 in revenue. This is what makes up the revenue. This is what the trends are. This is what's good. This is what's not good. This is everything you would need to know before you make decisions to try and make it better. And I think this is something I don't want to gloss over. And you can do this for anybody, correct?
Yes, this is really the heart of what Data to Profit is all about, helping business owners understand how they got to the sales that they are, and most importantly, what to do with it. So you're not making an assumption about your future plans based on what you hope, wish, or dream for. Hope is not a strategy, but when you can really rip things apart and figure out where are my true opportunities, where am I overselling or underselling, that's information that you can use to basically plan going forward on.
Yeah.
As well as then, okay, what are going to be the impacts of taking that direction?
And this is where the magic happens. So anybody, even spreadsheet companies, they can pull the data, but what makes you different is you help people figure out what to do with it. And that's where Sales Magic comes into it. So let's look at Sales Magic here.
Yeah, and one other thought on that, every business has an accountant. This really gets into more of traditional financial analysis, business analysis. And a lot of times it's unfortunately a skill that a lot of businesses just don't have to do. Yeah, you can pull it out to a spreadsheet, but looking through it and figuring out, that's where the fun is. That's where the magic does happen.
Mm-hmm. All right, so walk us through this. This is the fun part, you say? Okay,
Yep.
let's have some fun. Walk us through the data magic then.
Okay, so I don't know that I can see the whole slide as you've got it up right there right now. So right now you should say, the M really starts, Sales Magic provides a path to the desired 666,000 K growth. So it starts with M. It's that market plan. It's around what will physically happen, what's the observable behaviors. So when we went through here, we took a look at all of the data that's available to us to see, where can we add new products? Right now, Pat, your business focuses on appetizers and desserts in a very, very limited way. And we thought if we can expand that options of appetizers and really incentive people to sell the appetizers and sell the desserts, if we can get 10% of our dine-in parties at an average increase in a check of about $7.50 for an appetizer, over the course of the year, that could be worth about $13,000 to you. Doing the same thing with desserts. Now, we're not being as aggressive. We're only about 7.5% of dine-in parties at a much lower price. There's another $5,000 available to you. Okay, so now what we're beginning to see is I have a strategy. I'm going to add new appetizers and new desserts. I got an idea about how many of my customers I want to reach, at what price point, which turns into revenue. Not just saying, okay, we're going to get $15,000 to $20,000 worth of revenue off of new appetizers. You have a specific plan.
Okay, so that takes us through the M and the A, right?
Yep. Now the G. Now we gain new customers, and I think before we said we have a very limited delivery area. It's great if we can stick within 3 miles, but what if we double that? If we double our delivery zone and only assume that our sales are we're going to get 15% more delivery, again, now you have two different facts there. We're making our delivery zone bigger, and you're making an estimate as to how much more business you're going to get. Well, if at 15%, that's 950 new deliveries at an average check of $25.37. That's worth $24,000 to you. Now, the leaders of the group can sit and talk about, should we 2x or 3x the delivery zone? Should we actually expect 15% or 20% more? This is where the business leaders get together, and this is where they're gotten their experience comes into play. But you have a fact assumption that you're starting with.
Okay. So if we move on to I, then what happens?
Yeah, I mean, we've got the loyalty program. We have our customers that are coming in, and whether they're coming in 2.2 times a week, or 2.2 times a month, or 2.9 times a month, we can actually model out and say, what happens if we get them to come in an extra day a month, an extra 2 days a month? And if we do that by some kind of loyalty program, and we have 140 regulars that we counted before, and if we can take those 140 regulars up from coming in 2.2 times a week on average to 2.5, that at an average check of $37 or so, that's going to be worth another $15,000 to you. So now we've talked about adding product, gaining new customers, increasing the loyalty, and then kind of under getting what they currently buy. Instead of right now, we do coupons. And like coupons, whenever you give away $1 off a pizza, you're giving away $1 worth of revenue. Right? That's kind of like that's the trade-off.
Sure.
But you know what? People actually respond to bundle pricing. Instead of giving $1 off, give them a free soda. I mean, you got 6 cents in that soda versus $1 in sales revenue. Or if you're going to offer them a 3-topping pizza, go ahead and give them 2 extra toppings. It's going to cost you an extra 50 cents a pie. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing we finally took a look at is your menu pricing. Everything ended with a 5. It was 95 cents for the medium Coke. If you increase that up to 99 cents, or the pizza that's it's $12.95, take it to $12.99, you get that extra 4 cents. It's actually going to add a few $1,000s to your revenue, and nobody is going to miss it. No one's not going to get a soda because it's 99 cents instead of 95 cents.
Sure. And those are those little analysis points that we may gloss over if we're not looking at the business holistically.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And finally, the keep the customers you have. We went back and looked over the last couple of years. Isn't this amazing? Even though you just bought the pizza, you just open it up. We know your history already. But it's really keeping those customers that you have. And so we said before, if we have about a regular 140 regulars right now, and we look over the past time horizons, and we say, you know what, we lose an average of 40 a year, but new ones keep coming in. But if we can reduce that loss from 40 to 30 a year, again, they're coming in twice a month. And so if you take that and figure it happens during the course of the year, you keep 10 of them at an average of $29 each for 26 weeks, another $7,000 to you. So now what you've covered the entire Sales Magic realm of how you can possibly grow your business. And I would challenge anyone to come up with a fifth way. But now you see how we've actually taken your business performance, given you more facts probably about the business that you've ever gone into a planning mode for, and seeing how you can actually build a plan. Now, of course, the beauty about forecasting, and the only thing I know about every forecast is it will be wrong, but now you have a better way of understanding why it's wrong and where you were over aggressive, or in other areas where you may have been way under aggressive. But now you're building the muscle to use data in your business every single day, because as you go through the year, you're going to be visiting these exact same assumptions and saying, how are we doing?
And the thing that's special about Sales Magic, I think, is many sales managers and executives stop at the M. Boy, I hope my team can sell more. That would be great if they could sell more. And maybe that's where this distrust in goal setting comes from, because the rest of the AGIC, or AGIK rather, those are decisions we can make as business operators to increase our revenue. It's not just getting the salespeople to sell more.
Mm-hmm.
Very,
Absolutely.
very important. Okay, so let's talk about how this fits into the overall picture. Last month, you shared your bigger theory, which is the invisible forces of growth. So that's like all of this is piled up into a foundation of data. Can you recap the invisible forces so everyone understands how this fits together?
Sure. When you think about it, data sits at the bottom, and then we intentionally order culture as the next layer. Layered on top of that is capability. And once you have the strategy, that determines your growth. So if we start here and work our way down, we want to grow 10%, right? Our strategy is going to be by improving our customer loyalty and by expanding both our menu and our delivery area. We've got capability to turn out a great product in a quick time and rather efficiently because we're simple. We don't have a wide variety of menu items that we need to know and keep track and stock and everything. We keep a relatively tight ship there, but now we're going to expand that. So we're going to have to figure out what the impact of that capability is. And our culture is all about, we're here for families, fun, and food. And where those three things come together, that's our culture, because we want to make sure that everybody feels like family. They want to come into our business and have fun, and they want to have some really great food. And we've already seen how we can begin to use all the data that's available to us to quantify that, to measure it, and to manage against it. So it's very intentional that that's the order of the items and how they all stack up on top of one another. And when you're talking to people, you can say, you know what, if we can measure our performance toward this, and if we have this type of culture, grow this capability, execute these strategies, we're going to grow. We can grow if we execute this strategy by having the right capability and the right culture. And you see the interplay between those things.
And I think this is a really telling graphic. So you were just talking about culture, strategy, and capability. You can find out what the symptoms of the business are depending on where they're weak and where they're strong. Can you walk us through this?
Yeah. So when you're looking at the three circles, strategy, capability, and culture, and you know how your business is doing, or you should be able to figure it out because it's all measurable. But where you have a good strategy and a great culture, but don't have execution, but don't have capability, there's not going to be a lot of focus. Am I doing these in the right order now?
Yeah, it's all good. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so if you have a strategy and great capability without culture, you don't have any alignment. And you can have a great strategy and a great culture, but if you don't have any execution, if you have strategy and culture without capability, you're not going to be able to really execute on those plans. And I think I screwed up the first time. Did I say culture? If you have culture and capability without strategy, then the organization, nobody really has a sense of direction. And you think so many times, a business sets the strategy, they put the strategic plan together, they roll it out once, and then people forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is really important?
And this being the invisible forces of growth, this sits on top of Sales Magic. You have to get this part right and then install Sales Magic, and then you really go places. Am I understand this correctly?
Pretty darn close. The fundamental, where the foundation is data. And so you have to have the data and do the analysis first, because that's going to help you develop your strategies.
Okay.
But in saying, okay, now that we understand our data, where our strategies are going, we need to be able to make sure that this is a repeatable process. And there it does become so they're not separate and distinct, a phased approach. You have to have the data, you have to look at it, analyze it, and figure out where you are now before you can figure out how you're going to go, and then how you're going to measure your progress along the way.
Got it. Got it. Well, we have some time for some questions. If you have them, drop them into the chat because we'd like to include them in the conversation. Because if you're like me, the first time I heard this, my mind was blown because it makes so much sense when Lynn describes it. And if there's something in your world that you'd like to get a little bit of information on, let us know in the chat and we will include it. So back to the pizzeria, let's just make sure that we're looking at everything correctly. How does this all come together with the invisible forces of growth and Sales Magic in relation to my pizzeria, which now I want that thing to grow. I don't even own it, but I want it to grow.
There we go. Excellent. Again, here how this all plays together. Okay, once again, we see that our growth, we want it to be 10%, and $66,000 is what we want to take that up to. Our strategies are to expand our delivery area, and again, that's worth $24,000. Add new items, about another 19,000, and improve our loyalty and retention. And then there's some pricing things. So we have now our strategies. Okay, now to execute this strategy, what do we have to do? We have to build our new capability. We're going to have to bring in new delivery people, and we're going to have to be able to better understand our sales orders, where they're coming in. Are they coming in from the new area? Or we could say delivery is up, but if it's only within our original area, we'd be failing against that strategy if we don't develop the capability to understand how our results are coming in. So we made some assumptions in the planning, and this gets back to your original question, Pat. Are these sequential things, or do they work concurrently? Yeah, we know if we want to expand, we can expand, but now we have to be able to measure the success of that. And so now, if we say we want to add new items, the capability we need, we're going to have to source the new ones, figure out what they are, how we're going to market them, we're going to have to redesign our menus, and we're going to have to reorganize our operations to make sure that we can actually handle the different flow of different products in the back of the house. And so there's some things about the sales and profitability we made some assumptions about, but we can measure that through results and look at average check increases. And again, we can say average checks are going up and maybe attribute it to it, but maybe we've just done a better job of selling larger pizzas. So again, we've now been able to slice and dice our organization on a regular basis to be able to go in and look at how we're performing against these. And finally, the loyalty program. Our point of sale system, that's POS stands for, the point of sale system, every restaurant has one. And this is where they're keeping track of their customers and what you buy and how it is. So all this raw data is sitting in the POS system, not necessarily the financial system. And so we can roll out that loyalty program, and we can better track how we define and measure the progress that we have against our loyalty. So now if that's the capability that we need to build, okay, what does it mean for our culture? Now we're going to go off and hire additional people. So are we hiring them in relation to our culture, or just because they can drive a car fast? So we need to bring people in, and we're probably going to need to onboard 2 new drivers and another wait person, because we're going to give more attention to the customers, more time focusing on the upselling to appetizers and desserts. And Pat's a family-friendly business, and we want to make sure that culture is maintained. So if we want to do this, then we need to better train people as well. We need to train our customers and our sales reps. Again, those are behaviors that we're trying to influence. And so how are we going to do that? We're going to give them the training. Oh, by the way, you're not just going to take the tips that your own. We're going to have to figure out how we can reward everybody for the increased sales of appetizers and desserts. So now there's some incentive for me as the waitstaff person to actually do what the boss wants me to do. And then so now you figure out how to do that, and you can say, what, is there a bonus program based on sales growth, average checks, and loyalty visits, or some other factor? And when you're communicating to people, you can say, have a team meeting and say, we want to grow by doing these strategies. So we're going to have to do this stuff differently. And this is what it means to us as individuals. Or you can even start from the opposite end and say, hey guys, if we change these things about ourselves, and we need to compensate you for selling more appetizers. Well, if we want to sell more appetizers, I have to give you more appetizers to sell, which then, if we have more appetizers to sell, that's our strategy. That's how we're going to get our growth. So this same slide really becomes a communication mechanism for your team.
This feels a little bit like a card trick, a la the data magician, 52 card pickup almost. You take all of this messy data and then you align it into a very clear, easy to understand way that we could put this in front of a staff member. We could put this in front of an investor. We could put this in front of a manager, and everyone would understand what we need to do step by step by step to illustrate the results we want to achieve. And most importantly, what's in it for them. And that's what I think is so great about this process, Lynn.
Well, it's called Sales Magic, but there is no hocus pocus. There's information that's discoverable in all of your systems, and I don't care which one it is, you're probably not using anywhere near the potential to get out of it as you could. And I say that just because I worked with Fortune 500 companies that don't use all theirs, all the way down to solopreneurs, and I see it all the time.
Okay. So as we look at this from right to left, and if we have a culture that's ready to build on the capability, that's how this works. So you work from culture to capability to strategy, because if your culture is not right, you can't go to the results on the left. Because I think a lot of us, when we're thinking about growing our sales, we focus first and foremost, and sometimes only, on that growth number. Hey, everybody, we need 10% more growth. But you're saying this is a right to left motion through a slide like this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And
So,
that's why, the data would be that other column off to the side, because you see the numbers roll up everywhere.
okay.
That is the numbers, which most people don't like because they haven't figured out how to use them all, but that is the glue that holds everything together. It's the consistent language, if you will, of what we're trying to accomplish and how we're going to determine, are we successful or not.
So let's talk about some examples. What are some things that companies get fixed when they go through the Sales Magic process? What does this process help us get right?
It's making sure, first of all, that your sales commission plans are actually aligned with the company strategies. And one of the things that I've seen more than once is the company wants to grow from 100 to 110. Sounds like a big stretch. And so they're going to base their sales reps on actually saying, you know what, sales rep, your targets are going to add up to 8, even though we want to get to 110. So all year long, the salespeople are happy because they're making their bonuses, but the overall company is missing.
That's not a thing. How can the company miss and the sales reps hit? That's not how it's supposed to work.
Because we don't want to scare the sales team or freak them out with having goals that they are not immediately going to see as achievable. Because again, you've not laid out the plan as to what they are supposed to do. And so this is where making it transparent, what we're trying to achieve, how we're going to measure, how we're going to reward it, and bringing all those things in sync, and make sure that everybody's always on the same page. And that really even goes back to sales and marketing. Marketing comes up with their plans. Are they really bought in and trying to achieve the same goal as the sales team is? Sales team says, hey, if I can sell more pizza, I'm going to sell more pizza. If that's where I make my tips, I'm going to make more money on a bigger pizza than I am perhaps on this dessert.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's where everything needs to be tied together. The other thing that I see people doing is strategy is a leadership thing. Where the leadership people or people less than the senior people involved in the development strategy really see enough of the details to appreciate how it's going to affect them. Because really, when you see a strategy rolled out and maybe it's taking you in another direction, the first thing people know is, what does this mean for me?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to start measuring this, well, how am I going to be able to get that same information? Because I don't want it to be, so now you got to give me more information as I go forward. And then finally, you see the, just how the business operates. We don't think about strategy, capability, and culture as being tied together. And they come up at different times of the year in different situations. But if you really learn to integrate and manage your business with all three of those almost inextricably linked, you are going to see the growth, because that's where the growth center happens, when all those things are tied. And the more overlap that you can make sure you have in place, that's going to be what you fix first.
We do have a couple of minutes left for questions. So if you have a question, drop it into the chat. And we have a few that we're going to get to, but if you have one that you want to make sure we get answered on the webinar, let us know now in the chat and we'll get to it. And while those come in, Lynn, we covered a ton of ground. You made me really hungry for pizza. I think that's what I'm having for lunch as soon as we're done here. Can you just kind of recap this for us? Because Sales Magic and the Invisible Forces, I mean, this is a lot of content over lunch.
Yeah, and we did cover a lot of ground. So thanks for forcing me to stop here and think about, okay, where did we go? Your business, whether it's simple or relatively complex, there are only 4 ways to grow. There's the 4 realities that happen in the street, in the inside sales team, and with your customers. Sales Magic provides a way to build that growth-given plan with data-driven assumptions. Third, your plan becomes your strategy. It identifies what that capability that you need to develop is, or how you can leverage the existing capability you have. And it's going to give you more insight into the cultural issues that you're going to need to address. And finally, let's just not forget that everything can be measured with data. Now, most of that data you're going to have, but along the way, what's interesting, you begin to figure out, oh, there's some things I probably do need to know. And then once you start realizing that, then you can say, okay, going forward, I can make better assumptions because I now have an extra piece of data that I didn't have last time.
Yeah.
That's the really cool thing.
We've got a bunch of questions we need to get to, and we want to be done by 12:30 and make sure that folks can get back to their day. One of the questions that came in is, when you talk about sales, how is sales different than marketing? Is sales a function of marketing, or are they mutually independent?
Well, they should be working together, but a lot of times the message is, hey, marketing gets the leads, sales closes them.
Okay.
And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're all working on the same things. If I can get a warm body into the sales pipeline, is that really a good lead? What kind of lead is it? If I get them, what are they going to contribute? And so this is where the marketing and sales have to become a lot tighter in order to be able to make sure they're talking to the customers in the exact same way.
Got it. We've got a question from Sam Shaw, Uniquely Yours online retailer. Sam, go ahead.
So in your pizza example, you gave how to increase capability, how to increase, you're going to sell more desserts and sell more pizzas. You're increasing the costs, you're increasing your costs. So that might decrease your profitability. So just increasing your revenue is decreasing your profitability. It's not really a good model. So where do you decide whether increasing revenue is a good idea or staying more profitable is better? Like, what's your, before execution, when do you factor that in?
Sure. Great question, because I was just at a meeting last night and somebody asked that same type of question. They said they wanted to grow their sales. And the facilitator looked at them and said, do you want to grow profitable sales? Oh, yeah, now we've got that qualifier in here. Yeah, if you recall back in the culture section, I talked about having to hire another couple drivers and perhaps another wait staff. You are taking on some additional cost in doing this. And because this webinar is strictly focused on sales, really when you're looking at your total forecast, and particularly when you get down to margins and profitability, you are layering in some additional information, some additional assumptions, because you make it to the point where, you know what, if I need to do something drastically different and build some capability that we don't have, it may not be worth the trip, even though you can get sales. So great question. At the end of the day, I don't want to earn another dollar in sales if it's not going to make me more money.
And I think it's important to point out that if you were working with a client as you go through the analysis, you wouldn't propose a sales increase plan or a sales magic plan for unprofitable products. You would, pull back the curtain and show the client, hey, you sell a lot of this, but it's not as profitable as this thing that you could sell just as much of. Like, that's part of the data magician process, right?
Yes. Yeah. So in one of future webinars, we're actually going to be talking about gross margins.
Very good.
When you look at gross margins, I probably jumped ahead a little bit, but gross margins are a function of behavior. So are sales reps selling more things that are less profitable, or the opposite?
Yeah.
Which products are having costs going up? And I can actually have unprofitable customers. Someone once told me they got a really big customer. They were a distributor, but they had to give away an awful lot of margin. And the only thing they know is going to happen 2 years from now when that contract's up again, they're going to have to lower their margins again.
Yep.
So do you really want that great big customer?
Yeah, good point. Pat Riley, you've got a question. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, my question was actually stolen because I was looking at the last slide that you had up there, and I was just doing the math in my head saying if we're increasing sales by $66,000, but I've got to hire 2 new drivers, 1 new wait staff, I've got to increase sales incentives, I've got to print new menus, I've got to do training, staff bonuses, all the rest of it, that eats up my $66,000 very, very quickly. In fact, I think it exceeds it. If you just think about, drivers at 30 grand a pop, wait staff at 30 grand a pop, I mean, that's $90,000 right there. That assumes full-time and relatively low wages and, that kind of a thing. And that's what I was asking as well is, yes, we can get the $66,000, but what's the cost to do it?
Absolutely. And that's where this is, you're looking at a full plan here. And again, this is, and it's the starting point of a conversation. You think about the strategic planning process then. You have somebody who's putting together the sales forecast like this and then making the recommendations. And you've got somebody else then evaluating the expense side of it. And yes, what's the margin on the desserts and what's the margin on the appetizers? Are they worth it? Maybe as opposed to expanding your delivery zone, maybe you partner with somebody else. This is where you actively take on Uber or other things like that to deliver your product for you, where you may not cost you as much as having your own delivery people.
Sure.
But yeah, this is just one side of the equation, but it's an important part, because if you start then thinking about how much data and how much you're thinking about what the possibilities are, it just naturally goes to where you said, hey, this sounds great, let's just go do it. You're going to say, no, can we afford to do this? Is this the right business decision for us? Or is this a dream because somebody wants to grow sales? So that's the flip side of that's missing out of this particular presentation, but certainly good for another presentation on another day. And maybe we carry on with Pat's Pizza and figure out, and do the rest of it.
It's delicious. It always comes hot and fresh. I'm telling you, it's deep dish. It's Chicago style, for the record. So how do you figure out, another question here, how do you figure out how your business has been growing?
That's really where it says, you go through the history. And this is what we refer to as the source of growth analysis. And we do this by taking a lot of your sales information for any given period that you've got available to you and really looking and seeing what are the trends over time. And then how you do that, whether something like this, where you can actually look at the business week by week by week by week and look at changes and count how many times people have come in or how many times their credit card has been processed. You can lay on top of it what type of business it was. Was it a dine-in? Was it a delivery? You have all that, but this is really where you download it and you give it to somebody like me and let them work their magic with it. Of course, they're not going to work the same type of magic.
No, not the same.
But this is where this is what I do for you. It's not, you're not trying to teach you how to do it. It's making the results available to you. And then maybe in time, you have somebody who comes on. But this is what you really got to do. Go back and just start going through it. And then you will figure out what data you have is good, what is not so great, and what do you need.
Yeah. And if we don't have great data, that's not a stumbling block, is it? I mean, not everybody has pristine stuff. And if we don't really have everything that we think we shouldn't be embarrassed, right? Because I'm sure you've seen some pretty hot messes in your time.
Yeah. And, there's, nobody has perfect data, so there's a lot of effort that goes into trying to figure out, what is good, bad, or indifferent. How do you build systems so that no one's typing an address in and somehow the system goes out and gets it, so you're not fat figuring, 1904 instead of 1409 or something like that. But what you can do in the first time around, you may need to figure out there is some cleanup that you need to do. And there's some data that you have is going to give you the foundation, a better foundation for a hypothesis or a theory that you can then go back and figure out what else might I need to supplement this with. But at least it's giving you more than what you probably have already.
All right, we've got 2 minutes left. So there's one question in the lightning round, and I think this is a stumbling block. So this is a challenge to explain this in the 1 minute that we have left. So if I own my pizzeria and this growth is on the backs of my wait staff and the folks that work for me to get it out of the customers, can you explain just a little bit more of how we'd make that happen? Because it's a lot of responsibility to drop on them. So tell us more about that.
What you're getting to is the heart of the culture question. How many times have we heard, go team?
Yeah.
But we don't really tell people how. This is, if you're really going to do this, you're going to, the best thing that if I was going to execute this plan, let some of your staff be part of the selection. Is which desserts do they like? Because if they love a dessert, it's going to be more likely that they're going to love selling the dessert because they know they're going to give something else that they know and can attest to. And there's training, and there's going to be design elements that if it's really inconvenient with the layout of the tables in the back of the house now, do you need to lay them out a little bit differently? So this gets back to the other question is, are there other costs involved with this? yeah, there might be some redesign costs or just changes that you need to make. So it's important to tell people what's going to happen, why it's going to happen, what's it important to them, but
Mhm.
then also give them a reason why they should go along with it.
Yeah, that
Because
sounds great.
again, if you don't do that, then you're really trying to execute a strategy with capability with people who aren't aligned to it. Your sales will not be what you want them to be. Your profits will not be what you want them to be.
Got it. So if we're watching this and we have more questions, how do we get some information from you? Because to go from 0 to 60 would be tough, but to start getting some thoughts from you on where we are and where we can go together, tell us about how we can get in touch and learn more.
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say thank you to everybody who's there. If you can put that thank you slide up on it, it has my my number, my email address. You can go to our website, take a look at what's out there, and see if it gives you a little more insight. And you can always reach out through the website. If you want to be able to watch some of the previous videos that we've done, go out to the Data to Profit YouTube channel, and you'll get lots of information there. My number, 920-948-3355. There's a second number that's, I think, on the slide. That's my direct number. Feel free to reach out. And first thing we'd like to do is have a 30-minute discovery call with you.
And that's a great first step. So we're not done with our Gross Margin Magic webinars either. That's the next one, right? December 9th. Can you tell us what to expect there? Because some of the questions we were asked today got right to the heart of Gross Margin Magic.
Yeah, again, gross margins, when you think about it now, they're a function of sales and product delivery cost. You know, the cost of what you did sell directly, and it's that line. And so now you think about who's moving your margins. Is it your customers? Is it your sales? Is it marketing? Or is someone back on the supply chain side of getting things? Is it manufacturing? Is it distribution? Is it freight? And so we're going to be looking at all those things. And then think about now when you said we've got customers who are takeout and delivery. We have customers who are regulars or not. We can actually begin to classify people by that. And if we can take their cost of sales, line it up with them, then we begin to get a better sense of who our profitable customers are and who are the customers that perhaps we should encourage to go somewhere else.
Well, if you got something out of today's webinar and you want to continue the discussion, mark your calendars, December 9th, same bat time, same bat channel. Well, maybe a different channel. We'll send that to you. But Lynn Karazzi, the Data Magician, thank you so much for sharing everything you did today. And if you're wanting to learn more, get in touch with Lynn for that free 30-minute discovery call. And we've had a couple of requests in the chat for copies of the slides that we can definitely get to you, provided we have your email address. So drop that into the chat and we'll get that to you as well. I'm Pat Miller, the Idea Coach. It's been a pleasure to hang out with you today, and we will see you on December 9th.
Thanks,
Have a great day, everybody.
All right, take care. And that's a wrap.